the way that we try and speed things up is by initially having a conversation. Like our recruiter will have a conversation with the candidate first. They will qualify whether this is definitely worth moving forward with this candidate if a role does come up. And in that case, we'll have removed one step of the process and we can push them straight into the hiring manager phase of the actual interview process.
Welcome to the All in Recruitment podcast by Manatal, where we explore best practices, learnings, and trends with leaders in the recruitment space. If you like our content, please subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify to stay tuned for weekly episodes. I'm your host, Lydia, and with us this week is Christopher Redmond from Abstraction. Welcome, Christopher. Great to have you with us this week.
Thank you so much, Lydia. Very happy to be here and excited to talk to you today.
So, Chris, tell us about your background. What has really kept you in this space, and what has your experience been like all these years?
So I've been in recruitment for over 12 years. I've worked in 3 different countries at this point. I've worked in an agency in the US, which is from the ground up, which was super exciting. And then moved into more in-house. Got an opportunity to work at Facebook. I got to see what the giant machine of Facebook looked like from the inside. An incredible experience. Worked with some phenomenal recruiters in there and tried to soak up as much information as I possibly could. From there, I really wanted to challenge myself and go into a smaller company and see if we could help it grow. And I was very thankful I got the opportunity to move into Dot. So I moved over to Amsterdam 4.5 years ago now to grow, to try and be a part of Dot, which is an e-scooter company based here in Europe. And within 2.5 years, we grew the organization from 100 to 400. It was a crazy ride, super exciting. And within that period, I also moved into a manager position as well. So I got an opportunity to really learn a lot more about data, learn what it was like to actually manage a team, and then wanted to move a little bit further and progress a bit more. And I got an amazing opportunity at Abstraction, where I'm currently at right now, which is a co-development studio. So we essentially work with other studios to help them build their games, but we're definitely in the background trying to work on our own game at the moment as well. So here I'm managing all recruitment, very different challenges to an operational recruiter.
How big
but
is
I
the
really,
team,
really,
Chris?
the team is I've only got 2 recruiters at the moment. But the team's amazing, and it's still a major shift from what I was previously doing, and I really love trying to help and grow others, and that's definitely been one of the main reasons I've tried to stick in management and continue to progress down this road as well. So just a little bit about me there.
And for many recruiters, it's easy to get caught up in the day to day and forget about the real impact, or really not just forget about it, but just there's no real time to stop and pause to think about that impact that you just spoke about, right? So what does your day to day look like typically?
It's quite a roller coaster in general. I would say as a manager of a team, it's very different to the operational recruiters day to day. I read a book not too long ago that focused mainly on creating a routine that gets you in a rhythm and a flow of removing decisions from yourself, right? So having an environment that you don't even need to think about what you're going to do next. It's already there. And I think that has played a huge part in me just structuring my day. I will always start my day looking at the tasks that need to be done this week and then outlining what I want to actually do. I always have time blocked off for focus time. So I would say an hour or two before lunch and an hour or two after lunch. And then working around that, I'll have meetings with stakeholders, meetings with my team, whether it be one-to-ones or even projects that they're working on to try and provide any support from that side as well. So it can vary slightly, but usually I have quite a structured day throughout.
Right, but in all this, you also have to prioritize the big picture, right? So you've been with abstraction for a little over a year, I understand, a year and a half, right?
Yes, that is
Yes.
correct.
So there must
Absolutely.
be a few key areas that you've prioritized since taking up the role of head of recruitment at abstraction. So what are some key areas that you prioritized here?
Yeah, I suppose the one of the biggest is definitely the recruitment strategy. So working with our C-level to really understand what they want as a business, how they want to, whether it be go out to the market or how we want to grow our presence as well, and then being able to uh, create, whether it be projects or outline the type of talent that we want to bring in and create a strategy based off of that. So things such as, focusing on employer branding, candidate experience, pipelining candidates, of course, for certain roles that we need to fill right now. Whatever we feel is the biggest priority for the business within, let's say, each quarter is the way that I would really look at that as well. So our business is very different. We're a co-development studio, so that means that things shift and change drastically.
And co-development here
Very,
is, it means you
yeah,
work on projects for clients, isn't it?
correct.
Yeah.
So we will work with other clients to help them build their games. Okay. We are also, slowly but surely in the process of kind of building our own. But in the meantime, this is what we specialize in. We have mainly a tech team, but also an art team, a production team, design, and QA as well. So a lot of bigger studios will hire us to come in and work on a specific aspect of their game. So, let's say we're in negotiations with a client and the project has not been signed. We're on edge. We don't know whether we're going to actually sign that or not. And it can be quite difficult to manage, I suppose, that situation because it's quite a balancing act. Once we get it signed, it'll be all hands on deck. Let's try and hire as many people as we need. On the other side of the coin, we can't start hiring properly until we actually have the project.
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? So I had a question earlier, but let's just bring this forward. So going back to that balancing act that you were talking about of getting the right kind of talent quickly, just because, as soon as you sign on to the project and making sure you've got the skills in place first. So how do you balance that that need between, or that conflict that sometimes comes about when it comes to hiring quickly versus hiring the right fit? Which one takes priority over the other?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one we face on a regular basis, to be honest. We have developed a bit of a strategy and a bit of a rhythm right now within my team that we have pipelines. We've candidates that we know, we've scoured the market. We have different pipelines on LinkedIn, and we've reached out to a lot of these candidates just as touch points. Okay, nothing more than that. And once we do get that go ahead, we will jump on it as quick as possible and try and get them through the process. The way that we try and speed things up is by initially having a conversation. Like, our recruiter will have a conversation with the candidate first. They will qualify whether this is definitely worth moving forward with this candidate if a role does come up. And in that case, we'll have removed one step of the process and we can push them straight into the hiring manager phase of the actual interview process. So that's one way that I've seen us actually improve the efficiency and the time frame of getting candidates in at that stage as well.
So I mean, there's obviously that as a challenge, and you know, in an industry that moves so quickly in terms of technology and needs and different scopes that come into play, right? So are there any other unique challenges that you feel the gaming industry is facing when it comes to talent acquisition today?
It would be poor of me not to mention the difficulty right now in the layoffs and the market. So job security is one of the biggest concerns, I think, for a lot of people in the industry right now. We had over 10,000 people were laid off in 2023. We've already gone over that number in 2024. And they don't look like they're going to change massively over the next few months. So the industry needs to survive. And I think that's one of the hardest things, because when it does come back, there's going to be a major war for talent, because a lot of people will have left at that point as well. So that's definitely one of the biggest concerns, I think, for the industry, and one of the biggest challenges we face in talent acquisition. Another one I would talk about is I've come from a background of working in tech, and I only moved into gaming a year and a half ago. And I would say education is another really visible challenge for talent acquisition specifically. So if we're talking about people understanding the importance of candidate experience, people, and it's no fault of anybody within the industry. I think they just are a little bit behind on some of these things. And I think understanding, you know, metrics and data, for example, how to make sure that we're improving as a company, but what areas we can actually focus on, what bottlenecks we can remove. All of those things are really important. And you know, the industry itself is not that advanced in those areas. So that would be one of the other things. And then I'd say the last thing is the perception of the industry. There's a big perception of gaming industry as having very much a crunch culture. So this culture is essentially a culture of, you just need to get this done. I don't care how long it takes you. I don't care how many hours you work. Get it done. When, you know, the reality of it is everybody in the industry does not want that to be the case. And, you know, as a studio, we're very strict about, you know, how many hours our teams work, and we try and make sure that that doesn't happen. But you know, we're in an industry that have deadlines and priorities that are vital, of course, and sometimes you might have to work a little bit overtime. But from being in it, it isn't a massive problem from what I can see, but the perception outside definitely might hinder others moving into the industry. So I would say from a TA perspective, those would be some of the key things I would say I've mentioned.
So I presume this would then translate to how you position the company in terms of your employer brand, and how you deliver that proposition to someone who's coming in those initial conversations that you have with candidates, and them having that perception. How do you position the company as a place where they can really flex their skills, but also grow? I mean, is this something that you've already found as a solution for?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's one thing for me to tell a candidate, you know, we don't have crunch in the company. It's not something that we push. It's another thing getting, let's say, another engineer to speak to this person, right? So let's say we're hiring a programmer, and they're concerned about one of these things. One of the things that we would do, and one of the things that you know seems quite logical, is to get them on a call with the programmer that currently has been here for 2 or 3 years, and they can ask them open questions about these things. It's not something that I can tell them that they're definitely not going to be doing this, because I don't know. And that's the bottom line, I suppose, from my side. But getting a programmer on the phone with them and actually being able to tell them the realistic situation of what it's like to work here, we're very confident that it'll be a very positive experience for them. But that would be the best way, I would say, to really try and get them to understand the industry and the culture a little bit better.
And going back to the industry and all it's in constant state of flux, and there are plenty of challenges, obviously, as you've mentioned, is there a particular approach that you've found to be useful when you look at recruitment strategy for a company like Abstraction? Is there such a thing as
Yeah,
long-term recruitment strategy?
It's one of the biggest differences, for sure. Again, coming into the industry, having not worked in a co-development studio in the past, I struggled at the start to really adjust myself to how things work. And I think having a long-term strategy is just not the right approach for a studio like us. It's really just to look at the next 6 months. We have a business development team that are able to feed us with information about how close we are to potentially sign projects. And in that case, I would have a recruitment plan where I'd be working with our CTO and our CEO on, what is potentially going to be coming up, what are roles that we need to pipeline and get ready for. And at that point, once we get the sign on the dotted line, we would just go all hands on deck to start reaching out. But it is really about having that pipeline ready and being efficient about, once you do get the go ahead, that you jump on it as soon as possible. And I think from my side, that's been the best approach to a company like this. Looking long term is just not realistic, to be honest.
Yeah, the pipeline then becomes key. It's definitely the talent pool that you've been constantly in contact with. I suppose that will be the backbone of any kind of strategy change that you would see.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we talk about the pipeline, but ultimately it comes down to the relationships that we have with these people, right? If you've built a relationship with a lot of people out in the market, and then you reach out to them saying, okay, we've got something, they're much more likely to respond to you, first of all, but also, listen to what you have to say. So a lot of the in between of whether we have a project or not, it is about relationship building. It's about where the type of people that we want to bring in, and just making sure that we have contacts and relationships built there for when the opportunity comes up.
So how do you collaborate with hiring managers or team leaders when it comes to understanding their needs or priorities? I mean, what are some steps that you take, or what are some fundamentals that you think as it's a must-have when it comes to a system in which you try to understand what is needed in their hiring?
Yeah, we recently rolled out a new kind of recruitment process. So whenever we get a new role, a hiring manager will come to us and say, right, we've got something, we want to start opening this up. We have a kind of an alignment document. So it'd be a kickoff document, shall we say, where we ask them to fill that out before we have an actual meeting with them. And this document includes questions specifically about what we're looking for, why we're looking for it, and then it also has the job description and also the interview plan as well. So this is kind of our Bible for this position. It allows all the interviewers to see what's going on. It also is transparent so that everybody can understand the type of position that we're looking for. And then we will actually engage with them. Of course, all managers are going to want to hire tomorrow, and that's one of the biggest challenges that we face as well. But the next step in the process would be to have a meeting with them and set the realistic expectations with them, and remind them that most people are going to have at least 1 month's notice period. In other countries such as France or Germany, it could be 3 months if we're hiring there, and then work back from that, right? So if we say, okay, at least 1 month's notice, okay, how long is it going to take us to actually interview people? It could take, if it's a 4-step process, it's going to take us 3 to 4 weeks. Okay. Prior to that, how long is it going to take us to source candidates? Okay. That's probably going to take us at least 2 to 3 weeks to get candidates into the process, actually interview them and have a decent enough pipeline. So accumulate all of that up together, and you're looking at least, at least 3 months is what you're kind of looking at. And it can come down to the job, right? If you're looking at somebody very senior, that can become much larger time frame. If you're looking for someone quite junior, we can definitely shorten the interview process. We can try and get people in a little bit quicker for sure, but it's setting that expectations. And I would always say, always leave at least a week, 2 weeks for something that will go wrong. Okay. So if you've calculated it, that's something that you think, okay, I think it's going to be this much. Give yourself an extra week or two, because there's so many uncontrollable factors, so many things happening in recruitment that are outside of your control that, will end up creating delays and bottlenecks for you. So, yeah, set the expectations.
There is the use of technology, obviously, to speed up the process and to make sure everyone is on the same page and they know what to expect. And of course, that expectation setting can be made much smoother. So how do you think the use of technology, or even, the data points that come out of that, how do you think that has helped change or transform talent acquisition in the role that you're in, or even in general?
Yeah, I'd say, within the role that I'm in, to be honest with you, AI has really only been around for me personally in the last, since I've been at abstraction, right? When I talk about specifically AI, and the biggest things it's really helped with is automating a lot of the admin things, right? So creating email templates, looking at interview questions for our interviewers, also looking at answers to potential interview questions as well, looking at different ways we can research the market. I was completely new to gaming when I first came in, so I used ChatGPT to help me understand who are the biggest players in Europe within the market. Okay, divided it up between all of the different countries, and now I understand exactly what the biggest market is in Europe, where the best talent is for tech within Europe. All of these things you can get, within seconds, because it's able to give you so much information. I would always say to double check what it actually provides you as well, because it's never 100% correct. We know that. It might end up getting there. But yeah, that's been definitely one of the biggest changes from our side. We did implement a tool called MetaView as well, which was an AI interviewing tool. So it helped, it essentially recorded the interview and then would send an email 5 minutes later, providing us with a breakdown of the whole interview, all of the key points that have been mentioned. And it was a game changer for our recruiters for sure. But I saw, honestly, the biggest game changing aspect was with our hiring managers. They were so happy that they didn't have to, organize all of their notes and put them into our system. So that was huge that we were able to implement that, and the change that made was, I think, from a timing perspective, is huge, but efficiency as well. It allowed us to see all of the notes that came in quite quickly as well.
Moving into the gaming industry, I mean, you said earlier that you were from tech, but not specifically from gaming, and moving into that would have been a steep learning curve for you. So how did you catch up and at the same time also lead a team and make sure your recruitment strategy, how long did you take to adapt to
that? I would say, yes, first of all, it was a big shift, a big change from what I'm used to. It took me probably about 6 months before I was really confident in what I was talking about, because again, the roles are very different. You speak in different terms. I've been used to calling engineers, but in gaming, we call them programmers. It's a little shift, but it's because they do different things as well. But the likes of working on art positions, the likes of working on production. Production is kind of like a project manager within the gaming industry. All of these things I've had to learn a huge amount about. And I spent a lot of time with a lot of the different teams and the managers to understand what they do. I've gotten, kind of breakdowns and summaries of everything that they've done. And also, I think using going out to the market, I've gone to multiple events now. Last year I was at Gamescom. We've got a one here in the Netherlands called Indigo. We've been sponsoring that the last 2 years. And then at Brighton Develop as well, which would happen last year and is happening very soon again. But all of these at these events is another area that you just be curious and you explore as much as possible. I think if there was one thing I would tell I suppose if I was a bit younger and I had to give myself some advice, it'd be just to be much more curious about everything. And I learned that a little bit later in my career, and thankfully I've been able to use that a little bit more where I currently am right now.
And those slight shifts that you talk about, the different titles, the engineer to programmer, I mean, that can mean all the difference when you're talking to someone and you're addressing it, because
Absolutely.
they're going to process it differently and they're like, no, this is not for me, right?
Yeah, and they can tell if you know what you're talking about or not, especially if you call them an engineer and they're in gaming for 12 years, they know it's not the case. So yeah, you need to know what to say and how to address it in the right way.
Yeah. And going back to what you said earlier, when what's kept you in this space, Chris, and what really drives you. I know you mentioned the rewarding factor that comes into play when you find out that you've done really good work and it's impacted someone's life, right? So what is your favorite or most memorable recruitment story, Chris?
There's a few that pop into my mind. I would say one of the most memorable ones for me personally is the opportunity. Very early in my career, I had the opportunity to move over to America for 12 months, and I managed to get into a recruitment agency called, funny enough, Shamrock Recruiting. And the owner of it was really just myself and the owner, and we didn't have any clients, no candidates, we had nothing. And we were working in a kind of a shack above a Hawaiian restaurant, 3 blocks from the beach, and we were starting to build a business. We were building a recruitment agency from scratch. I was focusing on tech, and he was focusing on accounting and finance. And just going through all of the struggles and the difficulties in agency work, constantly being rejected, going out to meetings that aren't really leading anywhere, and also being in America, in a new country where I'm experiencing a lot of new adventures and things as well. I think this is something that is hugely prominent and had a huge impact on my career. I ended up getting sponsored to stay for 3 years, and throughout over that period of time, we ended up getting the company off the ground. And by the end of my last year, I was billing over 150K. And there's a lot of those things that you pinch yourself and say, did I actually do that type of thing? So from my own perspective, that was a huge moment for me to grow. I learned a huge amount about myself and recruitment in general, of course, as well. But that'd be a standout for sure. And then I think, as I mentioned in the past, just getting someone come up to you at lunchtime in in the canteen of your work and saying, you realize you've just changed my life, is again a very rewarding thing to hear from somebody as well. So I would say those are the things that have really stuck with me throughout my career.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the two types of rewards that you're talking about, just looking at the results of what you're doing, you're not even anticipating these things coming to you, and when it does, it's just a lovely surprise. And also knowing that you've grown in your role despite the challenges, and looking at how much you've seen not just a company grow, but just your own skills and your ability to build a business. I think that's a great story, Chris. Thanks so much for sharing. And thank you very much for all these insights and a look into how you're navigating the different challenges and also the needs and the potential in abstraction. So thank you again. And for those who are listening in, if they want to connect with you, what would be the best way? Is it LinkedIn or?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Best way
Mm.
to connect is on LinkedIn. Because I'm in the gaming industry, you know, I have a little avatar on my
I
profile picture,
noticed.
so you should be able to notice. You should notice me. It's a little bit different, of course, to most people, but yeah, I try my best to share as much knowledge as I can on LinkedIn, and you know, hopefully some of it sticks with some people, and it can be valuable for those that are not in the industry as well. So yeah, by all means, follow and connect.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris. And we have been in conversation with Christopher Redmond from Abstraction. Thank you for joining us, and remember to subscribe to stay tuned for more weekly episodes from All in Recruitment.